I want to give a quick disclaimer here. I'm not a doctor. And this is just sharing my experience with what I have experienced in my journey of getting me to a diagnosis and then what happened after that. If you think that there's something wrong with you, I implore you to go see a doctor. Do not self-diagnose, because that's just not smart. You need to see a doctor. I am not a medical professional. I'm not giving advice. I'm not telling you what to do. Sharing my journey in case it can be impactful to anyone else around me. So, now that we got that out of the way. Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Brooke. This is Seed to Plate channel, where normally we talk all about gardening, and we'll get to cooking someday. I'm trying to configure doing like a head-strapped GoPro so you can actually cook along with me, but more to come on that another day. I found out today that May is actually Celiac Awareness Month. I have celiac disease. I got diagnosed 2 years ago, and I've had quite the litany of digestive issues over my life. So I wanted to make this video, which is very off of what I normally do, but I wanted to make this video talk about that because it actually is a big part of my gardening journey, and it's a big part of my journey to much better health, both mentally, physically, emotionally. And I just feel like it's kind of important, especially as we foray into also cooking on this channel. So let's talk about having celiac disease. So first thing, what is celiac disease? Celiac disease is actually classified as an autoimmune disease. So autoimmune diseases, it usually is, and I have very large knowledge of this for a very specific reason that I don't feel like I can talk about, but autoimmune diseases are basically where your immune system attacks part of your own body. So in the case of celiac disease, when you eat gluten, which is in a lot of wheat products, all wheat products, your body identifies the gluten as a foreign entity, and instead of attacking the gluten, it actually attacks your small intestines. Now this is how my gastroenterologist, my doctor, Dr. Scott, you're a good guy, you're never gonna see this, but that's fine. Dr. Scott described it to me this way: your small intestines are largely responsible for absorbing nutrients. And what happens is you have these things in your small intestines that are called villi, and they stick up like fingers. So these are the villi of your digestive system. This is literally how he showed this to me a couple of years ago. So if this is your digestive system, what happens is the food falls in between these little finger-like parts of your digestive system. And so when the food falls down in here, it's obviously digested from your stomach, your body absorbs the nutrients and it absorbs into your bloodstream from your small intestines. So along with being an autoimmune disorder, celiac disease is also a malnutrition disorder, because what happens is these villi, this is what your immune system attacks, and so these villi lay down, and so all of a sudden you've got this flat surface where you're not digesting nutrients. So I remember having issues with this at first when I was like 17, 18, and I mean literally, like I actually thought that the issue was MSG because I would feel very sick anytime I ate Chinese food. Come to find out, it was the soy sauce, which is a super gluten heavy thing. But I thought it was MSG, which is also a very just racist thing in and of itself that I need to unpack within myself. But so I would just be on the floor in so much pain, like my stomach would just be in knots, and I just didn't understand what was wrong with me. So I also had a lot of other symptoms that I didn't realize I had until like much later. So like, for example, I always thought I was a very poor student. I could never focus. I could never just like sit down and study. And I remember my parents would get kind of frustrated with me when I would get bad grades, because they would be like, you just need to sit down and study. Like, your sister is so smart. Look at her. She studies. And I'd be like, I know, but I sit down to study, and then it's like, it just doesn't register. So come to find out that one of the symptoms of celiac disease is brain fog. So now that we know what celiac disease is, it's an autoimmune disease that causes malnutrition, which obviously for a young woman, for a college-bound young woman, not an ideal place to be. So let's talk about symptoms of celiac. I'm gonna try not to be too graphic, but like there's really no way around it if I'm being honest. Let's talk about symptoms of celiac disease and some of the symptoms that I experienced. The biggest one is digestive issues. So because of what I just talked about, where the villi in your intestines basically become flat, what happens is the food that you eat comes out in a very similar way that it was chewed and swallowed. That's the nicest way I can say that. And I remember telling my mom in college, I would say, I'm just like not digesting food. And I remember telling her that a lot, like, Mom, I'm just like, you don't understand, like, what I'm seeing in the bathroom is like far too close to what it looks like when I put it in my mouth. And that was my biggest symptom for sure, like outright debilitating symptom, was the constant digestive issues. The second biggest thing that really like hindered my everyday life was loss of bowel control. Wow, this is really things I thought I would never say on the internet. But yeah, no, that's very true. Like when I got gluten really bad, or I would be eating a ton of wheat, I would have like bowel control problems. I have some interesting stories. Looking back, I now know that part of my symptoms were skin issues. I had acne here and there, nothing crazy. I used to have periods where my hair would fall out. I had massive brain fog to the point of I would just stare at my textbooks and just blankly stare and like not know what to do or how to focus or anything like that. So those were the majority of my symptoms. However, symptoms of celiac disease can come in all kinds of various forms, and no two persons are the same. I know some people experience the opposite issue of chronic diarrhea, and they experience chronic constipation. So everybody's bodies are really different. Those were my symptoms that I experienced, and it got to a point, and this is, I guess, a good segue into like, okay, like how did I get diagnosed and what did that journey look like? I tried so many things to fix my digestive problems. I went vegan for 2 years. That was fun. I took plenty of supplements. I cut out dairy. I would drink like a gallon of water every day. I would eat yogurt. Like, I would do all the things that you were like supposed to do. I'd take probiotics. I would drink kombucha. Like, all of this stuff, right? Nothing fixed the problem. Finally, I started eating meat again and dairy. And then about 6 months later, I remember being at, I think my boyfriend and I were at a show, or, you know, we were like out doing something, and I was like about to pass out because I was so hungry, because I didn't realize I was consciously doing this, but I would get to a point where, because of the lack of bowel control and the chronic diarrhea, I just wouldn't eat like maybe 3 hours before we would go anywhere. And so we would show up to wherever we were going, and I was like super hungry, or we would go to a bar and I would have a drink, and then I would get like drunk really fast because I didn't have anything in my stomach. So I distinctly remember him like looking at me one day and being like, this is actually inhibiting your life and you need to go see a doctor. Like, you've been trying for years to figure this out. You need to go see a doctor. And so I went to my general practitioner, and she referred me to a gastroenterologist, and it was actually her who said, well, I'm not sure if you have celiac disease, but if you do, we might as well send you to the GI doctor with that blood test, because it's a blood test. What they do is they measure your antibody levels. So when you consume gluten, your immune system creates antibodies to attack whatever part of your body, the small intestines, and so they measure the antibodies that are in your bloodstream. And I was still eating gluten because I just hadn't dawned on me that that's what could have been wrong with me. So she's like, I don't know if this is what's wrong with you, but they're going to ask you to do this anyway, so you might as well just go with it, and, then you can know. So I go get the blood test, I go home, I, tell my boyfriend all about it, still obviously feel awful. And literally within like 2 days, the lab emailed me that I had my results. And I'll never forget, I'm like looking at these, I call my mom. My mom has a lot of experience like reading medical reports and blood tests and all these things. So I call my mom and I'm like, hey, so am I reading this right? I said, the normal range is between 0 to 15. And this says, one of the lines says 270 and the rest of them just say greater than 325. Could that be right? And my mom was just like, oh my God, it sounds like you probably have celiac disease. So I couldn't get into the GI doc for I think a couple of weeks. And so I stopped eating gluten. And I went to my GI doc, and he had looked at my records before we talked, and he walked in and he goes, yeah, so you definitely have celiac disease. I mean, the antibody levels in my bloodstream were so high that they were just like, they were so high they couldn't be read anymore by whatever machine they were using. So we had a long talk about gluten and disease and all this stuff, and potentially what could happen if you have celiac disease and you keep eating gluten, you could end up with like intestinal cancer at some point. And man, I don't want to live my life that way, with all the problems I was having eating gluten. And so I have to go back once a year just so they can check all my levels and make sure everything's okay. One thing I'm consistently deficient in is folic acid, and that's because bread that people usually eat is fortified with folic acid. It's kind of an interesting historical thing that you should Google. But so that takes you through, let's see here, that takes you through my symptoms, kind of my journey and how I got diagnosed. So now I'm, how long up? Maybe it's only been a year and a half. I think it'll be 2 years in September, into being gluten-free. And this is what I can tell you. So within the first 30 days, I dropped 20 pounds. And I guess that was something I didn't really talk about. When I was 18 and I started experiencing these problems initially, I lost 40 pounds. I mean, I'll never forget the day I looked at the scale and I was 90 pounds. And I'm only 5 feet tall, so I think everybody just thought I looked skinny, but everybody told me how good I looked, which that's a whole other messed up issue for another day. But I went from being like 130 pounds, like healthy looking, to 90 pounds in like 2 months. I mean, my grandma came for Christmas and she thought I was sick. Everybody thought I had anorexia. I'll never forget, I was sitting at dinner and I was like, no guys, I'm eating, I promise. Like, I'm not hiding anything from you, I'm eating. And I would sit there and I would eat so much food at dinner because I was just trying to show everybody that like I was eating food even though I was so skinny. So I'll have to find a picture of what I looked like and I'll put it up on one of these sides. But that was something I struggled with too as a symptom, was massive weight loss and massive weight gain. And my weight has fluctuated a lot since then. Now, today, I'm like 120 pounds, and that's a healthy weight for me. I feel strong, I'm active, I eat pretty much whatever I want, you know, and so I eat whatever I want except for gluten. So basically, I stopped eating gluten. I lost like 20 pounds in the first 30 days. Wasn't trying to, like, all I did was cut out gluten. What I didn't realize was how much I actually ate gluten and how much gluten I ate in quote unquote convenience foods. So like I would say, okay, well, you know what, I'm running late this morning, so I'm actually just gonna go get a muffin, like at the bakery. Or I'm just gonna grab a donut or a bagel or whatever. So a lot of these foods that contain gluten are kind of convenience foods. And so I cut all that out, and I could not believe the difference in how much better I felt. Because I had never known a life, of having that much energy. So I guess I did a bad part during the symptom phase. Fatigue, so like weight loss and fatigue were two things that I forgot to mention, but I would literally come home from work at like 4 o'clock, and I would go to sleep for 2 hours, and then I would wake up and make myself dinner and like go back to sleep at 9 p.m. I needed a nap every day by the end of work just so I could like make myself dinner and like do a load of laundry or something. So I had extreme fatigue, and then the weight issues. So I just couldn't believe that a person could have this much energy without like chugging coffee all day. And so after the first 30 days of not eating gluten, I told myself, I was like, you're never going back. You are never, ever going back to this. It's not worth it. Even now when I go to a restaurant with, you know, like my boyfriend or whatever, and they bring bread, it's amazing to me how many people are like, oh, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. I look at that and I see pain. See a lot of pain. I don't even want to eat it. I mean, truly, I have no desire for bread. I don't think I've craved anything bread or gluten related one time in the last almost 2 years. And it's because I feel so much better. So we're getting to gardening, I promise. So I got my first community garden plot in September of 2019, and that was also when I got diagnosed with celiac disease. And so I think in my head I've put these two things together as like, wow, I have so much energy to invest into this hobby that I love so much, and it's really important to me. So really, and I've told my boyfriend this plenty of times, I credit him a lot with encouraging me to go to the doctor, which if you're watching this and you think something is wrong with you, whatever it is, even if it's, you know, not necessarily like food or wheat or celiac related, go to the doctor. Go to a doctor. Find a doctor that you like, that's going to help you, that you feel confident in, because I just don't know if I would have ever figured this out myself. So if you have the means, go to a doctor. If you don't have the means, maybe try and start cutting out gluten or dairy or whatever, but you know, it's not normal to feel that way. And I think that's what I wish somebody would have told me is, you know, your body gives you signs, a lot of signs when something is wrong. And those signs have been normalized. You know, extreme fatigue. Everybody was like, well, you're in college. Well, you know, you're working hard and blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm sorry, I cannot believe that one person needs a 2-hour nap after working for 6 hours. I mean, shit. Working behind a desk. Like, come on. So, you know, all of these things that your body's telling you something's wrong. Listen to your body. There's nothing correct about having massive digestive issues, not being able to control your bowels, extreme fatigue, weight loss, dramatic weight loss and weight gain. There's nothing normal about any of those things. Go to a doctor. It's my journey with celiac disease. I feel better than I ever have. I have told people before, this is like a renaissance of my 20s, honestly. Like the first half of my 20s, I was just sick, and now the second half of my 20s, I'm just like thriving, and it's so great. And I don't have any regrets. I actually caught my celiac disease very early. The average diagnosis, what my doctor has told me, is the average diagnosis of somebody who has celiac disease is usually somebody in their 40s or 50s. And by then, how much damage have you actually done to your small intestines? So, along with this like health journey of me not eating gluten, feeling a lot better, my gardening efforts just tripled because I felt like, oh my gosh, I feel so healthy, I feel so good, I need to like, you know, grow my own food to kind of like keep that cycle going and all of these things. And so I do feel like this is somewhat of an appropriate video for a gardening YouTube channel, because my health stuff with gluten really empowered me to, you know, want to feed my body more organically, because like, you are what you eat, but you are what you eat, or what you eats, however that saying goes. And so it all just kind of goes together for me. And the thing that I would like to say is I don't believe that celiac disease is a spectrum. So some people are like, well, you can have a little bit. No, you don't understand. My body attacks itself even with a little bit. I mean, like, my own body attacks my own organs and breaks them down if I even have a little bit. And I don't know why gluten has become like, I think this is maybe like how people with maybe like an alcohol addiction feel. I don't know, I've never had an alcohol addiction, but like, to me, it's so rude. Nobody would ever, okay, if you knew somebody had an alcohol addiction and you said, well, you can just have like a sip, right? No. No, you can't. That's not how it works. And so when people are like, well, you can just have like a little bit, right? No, I can't. And the other thing that my gastroenterologist told me that really stuck with me was many people with autoimmune diseases can't control their pain. They can't control the degradation of their body. I can make choices every single day to not damage my health, and no roll or piece of bread or muffin or cake or soy sauce, none of that will ever compare to my quality of health now and how good I feel. It just won't. And I feel very steadfast in that. So that's my journey with celiac disease. I think I will continue to just feel better and better and have more and more energy, and but it's taken a long time for my gut to heal, and that just comes with time. So you have to be really patient and treat your body well. But thanks so much for watching this very strange edition of Seed to Plate channel. But I think it's important that people know these things, and that we talk about them, because I think the more we talk about them, the more you learn. Somebody could watch this video and say, you know what, I have similar things happening to me, I should go to a doctor. If I can inspire one person to go to a doctor and fix their digestive issues, that would make my life, because your digestion is what fuels you, right? Like, just like putting gas in a car, the fuel you put into your body is how it makes it run. And your organs and all of your digestive organs are like the carburetor and the transmission and the motor of your car. If those things aren't working, your car doesn't work. If your digestive system is not working, your body's not going to work. So if I can just inspire anyone out there to tackle their digestive issues head on, that's my goal here. So thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate the time, even though it's not as gardening related as my content normally is, but we will still have a regularly scheduled garden vlog coming out on Friday. And then I think I actually might take you out to the country this weekend, and you guys will see that next week. So thanks so much for watching. Enjoy your week, and we will see you next time.